Welcome to Think Up, Unlimited Possibilities, brought to you by Talkwa Network in Tampa, Florida. Now here's your host, Patricia V. Scott.
Hello, and my name is Debbie Lane. I'm substituting for Patricia V. Scott today. Patricia is actually in Daytona at one of the best hypnosis conventions of the year. It's with C.Ht and IMHDA. And Patricia is going to be teaching. In fact, she said she'd be in sessions teaching all day today until 6 p.m. One of the exciting programs that she is teaching is the Hypnotic Fat Ban. She's teaching other hypnotherapists how to perform this, how to do this process. And it was developed by Robert Otto. Patricia is absolutely one of my dear friends and a great hypnotist and trainer herself. She's got all kinds of training programs coming up, including a 2-day NLP primer in July, an NLP certification starting in August, and then a hypnosis certification starting in September. So if you have heard her before, or you're interested in hypnosis or NLP and just plain want to know a little bit more or become certified, you want to get in touch with Tricia. Her website is uphypnosis.com. She loves that word up. So up hypnosis, as in think up. You can also reach her by phone at 866-537-7746. That's her toll-free number, 866-537-7746. Patricia's school is actually in Palm Harbor, Florida, for those of you who are listening from outside the area. Again, I said that my name is Debbie Lane, and I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I'm probably best known for my work with the hiccup chick many years ago, a very famous case of hiccups that stopped in my office. Right after working with her, I had someone come to me who had a chronic case of burping. They burped 28 burps every 15 minutes for 2 years solid. Once that was done with, I said to my husband, I've had burping and chirping. I don't want to go there if I get the other end. I am still a hypnotherapist. I did actually get the other end, but we won't go there. At any rate, I work with mind and changing of the mind on a daily basis in my offices. I'm also in Palm Harbor. My website is wisdomhypnosis.com. And I'm real fortunate today because not only did I get to fill in for Patricia, but I got to bring a friend along, a friend of mine named Gary, and I get a little too familiar there. Gary is originally from Indiana and the Ohio area. After appearing on the Phil Donahue Show in high school as a young singer, Gary got the bug for show business. He earned his master's degree in theater performance and communications. He moved to Florida in 1984, where he's a musician and a college speech theater and humanities instructor at a state college. His website is GaryAllen.com. Although he's divorced, thanks to positive thinking, he's in a relationship with one of the 2 live members of our audience today, my husband being the other.
Yes.
Okay, and that's the formal stuff. I'm just going to tell you, I'm happy to have my good buddy Garwa with me. That's what I call him. He's not real bright, but we don't let him know that, okay? He thinks the students are really his students, but they're working on his self-esteem.
Well, I'm real happy to be here too, Dip.
I've been trying to get rid of you for 30 plus years.
And you can't do it.
I can't. Gary, welcome, and why don't you...
Thank you very much. I was in the middle of a beautiful nap, and the phone rang, and it was Debbie calling, wanting me to come down to Tampa, about an hour drive from where I live, to talk next to her. I don't know what we're doing, so I'm ready to get instructions from you.
Great, because I have no clue either.
Okay.
I'm hoping that someone will call in and tell us what to do. Patricia said she might from the convention.
So we'll just wait.
That's right.
Wait for a call.
Doot, doot, doot. If there is anyone interested in calling, the call-in number is 813-235-0644. Again, that's 813-235-0644. Well, Patricia's show is all about positivity and anything to do with positivity. Her favorite word is words are think up, That's what up hypnosis is about. And so I wanted to throw 3 little words out there that can change everything for you.
First of all,
Yes.
ask me if we're going to have a good show tonight.
Are we going to have a good show tonight, Gare?
I'm positive.
Oh, yay! Well, those 3 little words are up until now.
Up until now.
Up until now.
Why?
Because we tend to think in concretes and in words that are all inclusive. Things never go well. It never happens for me, or I'm always, words that are pervasive. And yet, if we use those 3 little words, up until now, things always go wrong.
Well, is that inherent in humans to want to think the negative first?
Actually, it is. It's called a negativity bias. And it's kind of evolutionary. It kept us alive. Because if early man had spent all day long admiring the beauty of this wonderful planet, he might not have noticed the tiger that was bearing down upon him. So we're hardwired. And yet, how much better it is when we realize that we don't always have to fear.
Oh, of course not. Don't have to at all.
The 2 most important words, fear not.
Fear not. Well, our minds control everything we do. Before we do anything, we have to think about it first. Why don't we think positive rather than negative?
Excellent point. And that's pretty much what we're both here to talk about, is getting us back on track. Because we can think all day long about the negative and perseverate, and what happens is we can never find a solution. Or we can go to the positive.
Or we can go to the positive, yes.
What if things really are going to work out?
Yes. It really does work, folks. I know what I'm talking about, being positive. Everyone has had, I am positive. Yes. And not that it changes the physical realm around us, but it makes us feel better. If we're going through something negative, why not think happy thoughts, right?
What if we get out of this hole?
Right. Yes, exactly.
Well, when we are thinking negative, it's as if we were caught in, locally here, let's say the Gulf. But when the tide pulls you under, and if you fight it and you struggle, you're going to drown. The first thing you're taught to do is just to let go, to relax, and you'll end up being brought up on shore. And so it is with our thoughts. When we're struggling and determined to try and fight our way out of things, we're fighting against the tide.
Let's say you are an adolescent young man in junior high school and a beautiful, one of the queens walked by, football queens. Well, now, that adolescent, their physical body is affected by their thoughts.
Absolutely.
And if our thoughts can make us feel good, why can't they make us feel bad? They can make us feel bad. I was in speech class not too long ago, and we do some impromptu speaking in speech class. I get a little box and put a lot of topics in there, have the student come up and pick a topic, and they have to talk about it for about 2 minutes.
Great training.
Which is awful. They're scared to death to do this, but it is great training. So one girl got up, picked her topic, looked at it, and immediately ran out of the classroom and vomited in the hallway wastebasket. And we were all shocked. We didn't understand it. But she finally came back in the room and explained that her topic was tuna fish. And since she was a baby, she hated tuna fish. She hates tuna fish. Every time she thinks about it, she gets sick and throws up. Now, if our thoughts can do that to us, why can't our thoughts do the opposite and heal and make us feel better?
And I know that they can. I see that all day long in my office. I work with clients for all kinds of physical issues and ailments. And one of the first things that I do is teach them to belly breathe, to relax, but then begin to focus on an area of the body. And yes, that's relaxation, but also what that is getting them to think about something other than the pain they're in.
Yes.
And as they do that, all of a sudden, I'll have people say, it stopped hurting.
Whatever is hurting.
Exactly.
Your mind.
Your heart.
Yes, yeah. Oh, especially your heart. Oh, yes. You apparently, obviously have lovesick people come in.
Yeah, I've had people come in who are torn because of a relationship, and they can't seem to move out of that relationship into going on with life.
Yeah.
And
yes.
really, the primary relationship they need to be in is with themselves. But it's getting people to understand that, to let go of the familiar. And pain, even though we don't like it, can become very familiar, and therefore we want to go back to it.
And it must be hard to do, though, if you're in the middle of a crisis and think happy thoughts. It must be hard to do at first, but what if you practiced?
Training ourselves is essential. Body language and breathing are great triggers, and that's something that we want to practice all day long so that when the crisis comes, our body is triggered, it's trained to go there. And we were talking earlier about body language, and you said that you have some cues you use in class.
Well, we talk about movements that we make that are important to us, that humans do all the time. Emblems are something that we like to use. If someone doesn't understand us or too far away to hear us, we'll go, what does that mean? Okay. This means something. We have a lot of movements we make that represent the words we use. And then, in like manner, we have a lot of movements we make that emphasize the words we use. The first I was talking about, no word needs to be said. Everyone knows what that means. But we might go like, I don't know. The movement simply emphasizes our verbal code. We have a lot like that. We do a lot of moving to express ourselves. I think that separates us from the animals. We are an expressive species. We only express, we think we only express with words, but our body is what really does the expressing.
And you're right, we're separate, and yet we're very similar to animals because when we want to show courage or confidence, just like the animal, just like the cobra who expands, we will expand ourselves. And just yesterday, I had someone in my office who came into my office. Well, first of all, sitting in the waiting area, she had her smartphone, and she was hunched over it, and she was texting, and she was looking down, and her legs were drawn together, and she just was trying to make herself as small as possible in that waiting area so that no one would notice her. And then she came in and she sat down in the chair in my office and proceeded to cross her legs and cross her arms and just pull herself in as small as possible. And her voice even became weaker and smaller as she told me her tale. And we love to tell our own stories. And the more we tell our story, the more in love we become with it, even that sad story. And so that's what she was doing. So I let her talk for a few minutes. And then I asked her to stop. And I said, look at yourself. Notice what your body is doing. And so what I'd like you to do, first of all, is put your hands on your belly, and you're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, letting the belly expand and contract, the way babies breathe. And that just got her, it interrupted her thoughts, and it got her to calm down for a moment. But then I asked her to uncross her legs and to put her hands on her hips, so that as she told me her story, she was more of in a stance of superwoman. And it was amazing how her story changed, because it went from victim to now there were possible solutions. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, victim from creator. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful example.
Well, it's so much fun to see things like that in the office.
And simple movements.
Yes.
Just a movement like that.
Well, it's funny because long before I even knew about body language, before I had done any studying, I think intuitively at some level I knew it, because I used to run a national chain of childcare centers. And I would have my little ones, when they would come into me feeling sad and crying, I would tell them to give themselves a very tight hug and then put their arms and legs out and be a rock star.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how empowered those little ones became being a star.
Because everybody wants to grow up to be a rock star. I still do.
Well, when I grow up, I just might.
Okay. We also use movements to control our communicative situation. How many of people have been sitting in an audience listening to a boring speaker, or someone talking, they want to leave and they can't get away from someone who keeps talking? Look at your watch. That tells them that this guy must be in a hurry. We do little things that tells the other people.
We start to organize our papers.
Yes.
We move our bodies away. Ooh.
And, need the chair oiled there. It wasn't you, was it? And if you want to get away from someone who will not let you get away, just kind of back up. Start backing up like you're going toward the door. And little by little, they'll understand that you're leaving. So there are little things that we can do body-wise that will control the situation.
Very true. Very true. And sometimes there are little things we do we're not even aware of when we
yes.
communicate. When you're bored, touching your face
Yes.
in a way that...
Some things we can't help. Sweating, blushing, things like that that are beyond our control when we get embarrassed. So I don't know if we consider those nonverbal because we're not doing it on purpose. But when we communicate nonverbally, we're doing it on purpose.
True, but if you are a true communicator and you're observing the other individual, even if they're sending out those cues they're not aware of, you can pick up and you can read what's going on. And if I notice that someone, as I'm trying to create rapport in my office with them, is beginning at some level to wander off and look away, I'm going to focus more on what they're saying because I realize that maybe what they're saying they're afraid to be sharing, or they're afraid of, or they're expecting me to judge. And that's not my job.
How do they sit and talk to you? Do they open themselves up to you, or most of your clients?
I can't say that there's one particular way. It depends on the individual and what they're going through.
Yeah. But you can tell what they mean by...
Right. As I say, just like that gal yesterday who came in who was all scrunched up, and by the end she was walking out proud. And that's often my goal. Sometimes people will come in and swagger because they're daring me to help them.
And maybe they don't think you can help them.
Well...
help me. Go ahead.
Exactly. And they'll often say, "You're my last resort."
Oh.
Okay. What I love hearing afterwards is, "I should have done this first." But it's just a matter of I call it quantum change, quantum perception simply because quanta is the smallest measurable amount. And yet we make a huge leap when we make just that slightest change in our perception and how we think.
And everyone's perception is wrong. What one person sees, another person will see something totally different. Music, listening to music. One person hears something, another person makes them think of something else.
I have a client who's a pianist who is working on Pachelbel's canon.
Oh, yeah.
And
one of my favorites, yeah.
Okay, well, what she talks about is the little nuances and how each individual that plays that plays it differently.
Differently, yes.
I'm sure you're familiar with that as a musician.
I play it every semester for my students. That's one of my favorite.
Do you play it the same for each class, or do you find that it changes according to the class energy?
I play the same recording for every class.
It's a recording.
Yeah,
okay.
so they all hear the same thing.
Okay.
But
do you find when you play music that you pick up on the energy of the people around?
Oh, yes.
When you're performing it?
And ask the students, what does this remind you of? What do you think of when you hear this? And some will think of an ornate wedding or a feast at a beautiful dining room set. And they all have something else. That music, they perceive something else from that song.
It's funny, when my youngest son was only 3 years old, and he's an adult now, and he'll kill me if he knows I'm talking about him, but that's okay. We took him to see Phantom of the... Oh, no, we hadn't even taken him yet. That's right. But we were playing Phantom of the Opera at home. And the scene where they're going through the labyrinth down the stairs, he stopped. That music was playing. He stopped and listened, and he looked at us. He said, "It sounds like they're going through a maze." Just not having ever seen the play.
Yeah. Everyone sees something different. Everybody, because we're different individuals with a different past experience. Everybody's got a different past. So it colors our present and how we see things.
Absolutely. And what we want to do is try and make sure that how we're looking at things, the filter that we're using,
no matter who we are.
Exactly. Is a filter that has the what ifs, the possibilities, as opposed to the what ifs nots. Okay? Everything we hear from birth to the age of 8 is really our standard filter. From that point on, that's how we think our thoughts. So we've got to, if we ever heard anything negative, and who grew up in a household that didn't hear something negative?
Right.
We've got to begin to retrain to unpack that luggage.
And that's why you didn't tell your kids no.
You're right.
Isn't it?
Yes,
I
you're
remember
right.
that.
Wow.
Do you remember the first time I heard that? We went to the Science Center.
No, you'll have to refresh my memory.
A long time ago. We went to the, was it Mosey? And I heard you tell your child, that is not appropriate, or something like that, instead of no. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. Well, I didn't want to hear no back all the time.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're the first mom I ever heard do that. And look how your kids turned out.
Okay. Moment of free bragging. My kids are awesome. They rock. Both wonderful young men. So you have shared with me before about how what we say and the inflections in our voice
Oh, yes.
makes a huge difference.
Big difference.
I notice that when I'm doing a session, I can change an inflection to affect someone's trance state, but also to affect their response to what's going on in the hypnosis session. You have a great little story that you tell, though. Could you share that?
I sure could. And let me explain, first of all, what this demonstrates. I use it in my acting classes and my speech classes. How we say something can be more important than what we say, than the words we say. Maybe a little more important, maybe way more important. But I found a piece, and I can't remember the man's name who wrote this. It was a long, long time ago. But it beautifully demonstrates how we say something is more important than what we say, than the words we say. And it's just a bunch of gibberish, real words, to a children's story. I'm not going to say what the story is. I'll see if the listeners can guess what it is by hearing me. But all of the words in the story are substituted with words that sound like the original words, or phrases that sound like the original phrases. So if you look at the story on paper, it means nothing. The way that I say the words, though, you will surely get a meaning out of it. Even though the words, what I'm saying is nonsense, by the way I'm saying it, because I'm a great actor.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
By the way, the way that I say it, not the words that I'm using, you should get a meaning, and you'll understand what the story is. And I do this for my students, and they are awed by it. I think mostly because I have memorized it over the years, because it's a very difficult piece to say. But the first time I heard it was on, do you remember a show called Hee-Haw?
I surely do.
The people know Hee-Haw, the same people that know who Phil Donahue is, right?
That's right, that's right.
Back in the day.
We're aging ourselves there, aren't we?
But one of the comedians on the show, Archie Campbell, did a bit where he was a barber and would cut people's hair and do his comedy routine. But anyway, he did this once. And I was 7th or 8th grade when I saw this. But I saw the value in it because I was taking a speech class. And one day when I was in college, my sister found this and gave it to me, and I remembered it, and it's a beautiful example. How we say something, our vocal cues, our body language is more important than what we say. Now, I'm going to begin it and see if you can tell me what the story really is by how I'm saying this. You too, Deb.
Okay.
Once upon term, there was the little gull who lived with a murder in a little cottage on the ridge of a large, dark forest. This little gull often wore a pretty little rat cluck with her little rat hut, and for this reason, Pimple called her little rat rotten hut. One morning, little rat rotten hut's mother called her and said, "Little rat rotten hut, here's a little basking with some bird and barter and sugar cockles. Take this little basking to the cottage of her grain murder, who lives on her other side of her florist. Shake her lake, done stop her laundry rote, done stop her peck floors, done daily doily in her florist, and yonder Norris sorghum stenches, done stop her torque with strainers. Whole cake murder, resplendent little rat rotten hut, and tickle little basking, and stuttered off. On her route to the cottage of her grain murder, little rat rotten hut mitten anomalous woof. Well, 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 said this wicked woof. Evanescent little rat rotten hut. Where's he putty little gull goring, wizard little basking, Armor going to my grain murders, reprised the little gull. Grammar seeking bet. Armor taking arson bird and barter. And sugar cockles. Oh ho, high for gnats woke, but her taught tomb shelf. Oil took her shirt court. Oil ketchup with her letter, and then, oh bore. So the wicked wolf took her shirt court, and when he wretched at a cottage of her grain murder, picked in her windrow, and sorted a oil warming, was lying in her bed. In her flesh, this abdominal wolf lipped on her bed, punched on oil warming, and garbled erupt. Then this wretched aminal pot on her grain murder's nut cup and nut gun, and curdled open her bed. In her late a while, later rat rotten hut a raft at her cottage, and rankered o' bail. Come ink sweat hard, said her bloat Thursday wolf, disgracing his verse. Later rat rotten hut is almost done. Later rotten hut, entity bedroom, and stud by our grindmother's bed. Oh, grammar, cradle ladle gull historically. Water bag ice or gut. A nervous sausage bag ice. Battered lucky chew whiff sweat hard, said her bloat Thursday wolf, with her wicket small on her face. Oh, grammar, water bag noise. I never saw such bag noise. Battered small your whiff doling, whispered the wolf. Oh, grammar, water bag mouser gut. I never saw such bag mouse. Days were unfortunate ladle gulls lest warts. Oil off her sodden, caking off her carvers, and sprinting on her bet, this hoarded wolf leapt on poor ladle rat rotten hut and garbled erupt. And the moral to this story, ladies and gentlemen, and Deb, yonder nor sorghum stenches shut ladle gulls ever stop and torque with strainers.
Very good.
Are they clapping out there in the... Are our two live audience members clapping?
Right. That's right. Oh, that's wonderful.
But understand what that demonstrates. Everyone should have gotten the meaning from that gibberish because of how I was saying it.
Absolutely. The inflection, the tone.
And we do that every day when we communicate with people.
The patter.
Yes, yes. We act a certain way when we talk. We sound a certain way when we talk. We do certain things with our voices that have meaning. And if we can come to the point where we can control all this and do it on purpose, that would be real power.
It is real power. And if you watch politicians speak.
Yes. Salesmen.
Yes.
Ministers.
Yes.
People who are...
Motivational speakers.
Yes, motivational speakers, yes.
They know how to draw the
They are
crowd in.
masters at manipulating their voice and purposely doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is actually a byproduct of neurolinguistic programming, something that Patricia is always offering and talking about. And so I'm going to take a moment to go back to
Good transition.
That's right. Mention that for Patricia. And that is that Patricia is offering a 2-day NLP primer coming in July and an NLP certification starting in August and a hypnosis certification starting in September. She can be reached at her website, uphypnosis.com, or by phone at 866-537-7746. And while we're doing shameless plugs, Gar, do you have anything that you want to say about your website?
I have a wonderful website. I'm a musician in addition to being a college prof. And I bring music with my piano, and I bring music to parties, special events, restaurants, anything, to add atmosphere to the background. Very classy music. Back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, when the kind of music they don't write anymore. As my grandparents used to say when I was listening to the Beatles. But anyway, if you listen to this show and you're in Central Florida, if you'll go to my website and you'd like my services, I'll certainly give my services for half price if you mention this show. But if you'll go to GaryAlyn.com, that's GaryAlyn.com, check out my website, what I do, and one of the pages there will allow you to contact me.
Fantastic. And again, I'm wisdomhypnosis.com. That's wisdomhypnosis.com. And I invite you to visit my website as well. It'll tell you a little bit about who I am, what I have done, and the services that I offer. And anyone that contacts me through my website and mentions this show, I'll gladly send you a free audio, a free stress-relieving audio for you to listen to and to help you think more positively. So thank you. Okay. So back to the good stuff.
All right, there are speaking of positively, there are other reasons that communication is hindered. And it's also because of that negative thinking, but there are other things that I wanted to bring up today. Barriers to listening, anything that distracts us from listening to somebody, then hurts the communicative process. You might miss the littlest thing, and it will change the whole meaning of what they're trying to tell you if you don't share their message. And a lot of things in our environment can get in the way. Sirens outside can distract us. And we want to, when we're communicating with somebody, we want to focus on them. We want to get away from all of the distractions, kind of ignore all the distractions, because their words are important. All the words are important. We want to hear all their words, but not just external noises, but internal noises. Anything that distracts us from listening, from communicating, is a noise. It could be worry. Are you worried about a bill you have to pay while they're trying to talk to you? Are you thinking of something you can say in response?
That's a biggie.
That is a biggie.
Yes.
And I fight with that myself.
I think we all do at some level because our minds are constantly checking, and we're analyzing our thoughts, whether they're good thoughts, bad thoughts, right thoughts, but we're also looking to be heard.
Yes, yes. Oh, we have a need to be heard, don't we?
Yes. So very often I find myself and have to get back in and focus and really draw in. When I do, I'm lost in the zone. I love that real communication with someone.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And listening is 50% of it.
75.
75?
I think.
65.
Okay.
All right.
You got a deal. Come on,
But anything that gets in the way of listening, of you accepting their message and sharing their message into your gray matter, is noise. And we want to get rid of noise. Even ourselves can be noise. Do we have any stereotypes? Do we have any prejudices? Would take away from that? Would maybe prevent us from listening, taking somebody seriously?
I'll tell you, I had a client several years ago who came to me for smoke cessation. And when she arrived, she had forgotten her hearing aids, and she'd been a 3-pack-a-day smoker and hadn't had a cigarette in 2 days, which I don't tell someone to do before coming in. Well, as you can imagine, she came in roaring, ready just to rip my heart out, my head off, and anything else she could. And my initial response was, oh my goodness, how am I going to help this woman? She can't listen to me. I was really concerned and asked her to listen to an audio that I had, a pre-talk, so I could go out of the room and pull myself together. And when I went back in, I just decided that I was just going to listen to her. And I was just going to listen to her. And I got close with her. And as she began to talk, I was able to take her hand and just gently touch her hand and rub it.
Yeah.
She became a kitten. She went from hating everybody she knew, her children, her husband, everybody else, to really just being a vulnerable little girl. And that's when change was made. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Another thing is status. Do you think you're better than the other person? And if you do, you might not listen to them because of that. Defensive people who have to be right all the time. And when the other person is saying something, they correct them. Yes. Defensiveness. So we can be our worst enemies in communication. And we need to be aware of all these things.
And something I say in sessions, in trance to people often is that at times we're all misjudged. What other people think about you is the result of their fears, their worries, their mistakes, their beliefs. Nothing more than their thoughts. And we're all misjudged at times, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We can accept that because we know our true value. And it's funny because sometimes I'll watch someone as I say that, settle down. Because what was going through their mind beforehand was all of those old negative tapes.
Bosses tend to not listen to their employees because of something called experiential superiority. You think, well, I'm the boss. I don't need to take them too seriously because they're an underling. Or parent and child not listening to their little kids because I'm the parent and I know better.
Oh, boy, you brought something up near and dear to my heart.
Good.
Because we have something called negative bias. 100 good things can be said about us. But the one, and I think we mentioned this earlier, the one negative is what we hang on to, all right? Well, it takes 1,000 attaboys to undo that one negative. And so when we tell a kid, you stupid klutz, oh my goodness. Or when we stand up over, think how much taller and you are than a preschooler or an elementary school kid, and you're towering over them, telling them how bad or naughty or whatever they are. If you just get down to their face level and talk calmly and let them know that you love them, it's their behavior you don't like. they can make a better choice.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How different would they feel about themselves?
And if a child listens to that constantly, they're going to grow up believing it and become that.
Absolutely. And then you see it in the office setting where a boss is feeling pressure from maybe his superiors or maybe financial pressures if he owns the business or she owns the business. And what happens? They then kind of catch their employees doing everything wrong because they're living in fear. Instead of, hey, thanks for taking care of that memo.
Yes. Why can't and I try to do this. And I told my girlfriend just a few minutes ago that we need to compliment people whenever we can.
Random acts of compliments.
Yes, yes. And it's so easy to do, and it should be sincere. It should be real. But after a while, that person will always love to come and talk to you because you make them feel better.
Yes.
And it's not a hard thing to do.
And yet, how many times, thank you so much, how many times have you noticed that when you compliment someone, let's say in a grocery store, they deny it?
Yeah. They don't know how to accept a compliment, do they?
No, in fact, they're implying that you must be an idiot for thinking that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've seen that. I've seen that, again, in my office. People where they start to tell me something and I'll go, but wait a minute, you're really good at this or that. And the response is, no, I'm not. No, thank you. You have to say that. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I try to do that in my students going out of the classroom who might have had a bad project or a bad performance that day, but I'll find something to praise them for. And they get the biggest smile on their face. When you walked in the door tonight, I complimented you. I said, you know, your nose is not nearly as big as your husband said it was. And I hope you appreciated that.
Well, I won't repeat what I said to you.
No, don't do it. Don't do that. But it's so easy to do is to just lay a little compliment on people, maybe strangers. I love that shirt you're wearing. Or
Right. Well, you know, with my kids, I would catch them doing something right. And like you, when I was in the classroom, it would be, oh, I see Jane is walking quietly, or Jane is putting her books away. And others would follow suit because they wanted their name mentioned. And how much more effective is that? And how much easier would it be to manage a staff
sure, yeah.
if you catch them doing things right?
I've never had a staff, so I've never been able to try that.
But you're a musician.
Good one. Good one.
Oh, thank you for this water. I was coughing there for a little while ago. Okay, so what do you think are some of the quick, easy tools that we can use as individuals when we're out there and we're maybe about to enter a room full of strangers and we want to feel confident?
First
we
of
want
all,
to feel better.
smile. It makes you approachable. You enter a room smiling and just people can feel the energy. And make it sincere smile, not a fake one, but a real smile. And first impressions. You know how important first impressions are. That's what people will remember about you. And don't be meek in your handshake. Talking about body language, a good handshake, women and men, great handshakes will be remembered. And don't be afraid to talk to people.
Okay.
First. I go into Subway once in a while, or some of the restaurants that have employees in the back helping the customers, and I can hardly understand them. Can I help you? What do you want today? Yeah. And you can't understand. Yeah. And so people need to be bold when they speak.
Which reminds me of this, our cell phones. I put my phone down when I'm paying for my purchases in a restaurant or in the grocery store because I want to communicate with that human and let them know that they are human and not just a Robotron that I'm paying.
Yes.
It's really important, and I think sometimes we forget that.
Go into any restaurant, you'll find that's true. Yeah, we've lost the art of listening, communicating.
I agree.
Especially people that own these.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's easy to get sucked into them. It's easy to get sucked into all of the social media. And I'm not anti-social media. I just think there are times and places.
Oh, yeah.
It's so important to truly communicate. And I'm going to feel better about me when I'm communicating better with you. And that's something that people have to realize. And something I always taught my sons was ask questions.
Yes.
What's
You'll never learn
everyone's
anything.
favorite subject? Themselves. So if you go into a room and you're feeling shy, you're feeling a lack of confidence, ask questions.
You'll never learn if you don't. My dad used to tell me that too. You never learn unless you ask questions. Even though he doesn't have the answer sometimes, you still need to ask. Another way that people can communicate, we haven't talked about yet, object language. The things that we carry around with us, that we like to display so that the world sees certain things about us. The cars we drive, the houses we live in, the people we marry, are objects that we have with us. Tell certain things about us.
My husband's not an object.
Oh, you have to think of him during this talk. We do.
Okay. No, but I know what you're saying.
Clothes we wear, jewelry we wear. Now, if you can't afford something fancy, that's not really object language because you're not purposely carrying it. You have to do that. But if you purposely have an object that you carry with you or drive in or something to communicate something about your personality, that's object language. That's another way we communicate.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And it's true because as you're saying that, and I'm scanning my thoughts in my brain.
Yeah. What do I do? What do I carry?
Well, that's it.
Briefcases and yeah.
Who do I recognize? People that come into my office and the women, the bags they carry. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah.
The bags.
Do you dress for comfort or do you dress for style?
Right.
Object language would be the style. What do I want the world to know about me? I think I'll wear this today. Yeah.
Okay. But I think it's more important, what do I want to know about me? And again, going back to thinking positive and feeling positive, am I putting on something that makes me feel good about me today? Which brings me to something, eye contact.
Oh,
As
yes.
we're talking, I mean, we're not looking at the camera, we're talking and making eye contact. But something, and I think you and I have talked about this before, something people often don't do is make eye contact with themselves.
Have you ever known people that can't look at someone else's eyes, that up over their heads or down? They're afraid they're afraid that you're going to rip them of their power.
Well, as a hypnotherapist, I get that all the time.
Do you? Do you?
People who obviously are fear-filled because don't look me in the eye.
Yeah.
And that always tickles me. But a story I like to tell is we have a couple friends, or friends that are a couple that my husband and I go out with on occasion, that have more money than all the powers that be. And so their clothes are the best and imported from Italy, and they have personal trainers. Everything about them is impeccable. And on one particular evening, we were getting ready to go out, and I was having one of those bad hair, 4 outfits on the floor kind of nights, where nothing looked right. Okay.
I can't relate to that.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Well, my husband, I sent him downstairs, and while he was downstairs, I looked in the mirror, and I just made eye contact with myself. And I used my own name. Our subconscious loves to hear its own name. And I spoke out loud, and I said, Debbie, these people, and I use their names, they love you. They love you for who you are. They're not concerned with how you look, but they're concerned with how your soul looks, how your being looks. So go out tonight and just be loving. And I took a deep breath, and I said, Debbie, for a woman your age, you look awesome. And I did. And I walked downstairs, and my husband looked up at me and said, what did we pay for that outfit?
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah.
And I hadn't changed. It was a change in attitude.
Attitude. Yeah. Yeah. And eye contact is so important with other folks because if you are willing to make eye contact with somebody, you look more trustworthy and more approachable.
Yes.
And confident. If you were willing to look not just their face or around their face, but their eyeballs.
Yes.
Public speakers who look into the eyeballs of the audience seem trustworthy and likable. If he can look at me and say that, he must be telling the truth.
And therefore, if you can look at yourself and say that, you must be telling the truth. And again, if you're about to go on a job interview, if you're about to go into a party full of strangers, if you're about to go into a classroom for the first time and meet other students, whatever it is, if you can first Find a moment in the restroom where you can look in the mirror and talk to yourself, where you can stand with that pose. 2 minutes, they say, is what it takes to stand with the arms on the hips, the hands on the hips, arms
Like
held
Superman.
back. Exactly. And testosterone is released and cortisol goes down. Studies have been done that show this. So you're going to walk in feeling more confident. You're going to walk in with that swagger and sit down in class. And people are going to be drawn to that.
And they'll follow you across the room. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's a whole lot better than waiting outside the classroom, getting lost inside of your smartphone or whatever.
Oh, it sure is. Yeah. And some people I just think that they're born with that kind of fear of other people. You've dealt with agoraphobia.
Yes, I
I'm
have.
sure you have.
Yes, I have.
Maybe you can say what people just are afraid of everything.
Well, that's it. Those are people who have allowed those perseverating thoughts to just overwhelm them.
Yeah.
So that everything is an overwhelm. And we've really got to take that apart one step at a time, one fear at a time, but also just begin with picturing. How many times have studies been done with basketball teams, as an example, where they practice or whether they have visualized themselves? Well, with the agoraphobic, imagine yourself outside. Imagine feeling that sunshine. Imagine actually speaking to someone. And the more they actually imagine it, the more it becomes a possibility.
Yes.
What we think is what, as you said earlier, thoughts become things.
Thoughts become things. Sure, sure. Before you do anything, you have to think about it first.
And you can choose whether you think a good thought
Sure.
or a bad
Yeah.
thought.
Talking about agoraphobia, my mother was a hypnotherapist, a hypnotist
Yes.
at one time. And this was years ago, but I remember a client of hers who was so afraid of everything, she lived in her closet. Literally. Her husband would have to bring her a toilet, the phone, food, delivered everything to this closet. She wouldn't come out of the closet for months and months. Wouldn't step out. And the poor husband came to Mom for help. And Mom worked with her for months too, but I remember her leading her out of her closet outside of the house. Eventually, through hypnosis, she took her to a store. And the husband just broke down in tears.
Wow.
Yeah, he was so happy.
I love stories like
Yeah.
that. I'll tell you, just recently I was asked to stand up in front of a group meeting at the doc's office that I work. I work with Dr. Cesar Lara, a weight management doc, and he was having a staff meeting and asked me if I would speak to the group about various cases that I've worked with. And afterwards, one of the girls came up to me and said, "Debbie, you didn't share the best story of all, in my opinion." I said, "Oh, what's that?" She reminded me that there was a woman who I had worked with several years ago who called me a few months back now. And when she first called me, she left a message because I wasn't able to answer the phone. But when I called her back, she couldn't even answer her phone. She had to screen the call. When she came to see me, she couldn't walk through the front of the office. Her husband had to come in, and I had to go through the back door and bring her in. And this woman went from not being able to enter the front door and not being able to do anything but just sit and kind of rock to a point where finally I was able, like your mom, I was able to go to the grocery store with her. And we walked around the complex several times. And then not too long ago, she brought me my beautiful handbag, which I will always love, because she went on her own to the store.
By herself.
By herself.
Big.
I
That's
had
big.
admired, it's a Vera Bradley, and I had admired hers. And she was like, that meant something to her, and she was so delighted that she went, and the girls couldn't believe when she came in the front door and came up to the reception area and said, "Is Debbie in? I've got something for her."
How does it make you feel to help change someone's life like that? To take this hurting individual and see them be normal again.
What I have to say is I cry tears of joy.
I bet.
But I will also tell you, it's not me. It's them. They're doing the work. I'm just so privileged that I get to go along for the ride.
Just guiding them away, and they had the power inside them all the time.
Gee, that sounds like a movie.
It does, doesn't it?
There's no place like home.
Yeah.
You had the power
My
inside
favorite
of you.
movie too. Yeah,
Yes, yes. Okay. All right. So can you share anything that your mom embarked, or not embarked, what's the word I want, that your mom shared with you growing up that helped you, because of her knowledge as a hypnotherapist, helped you become more confident?
About the things that I've told you today. Speak boldly.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to talk first. Sit at the front of the classroom instead of way in the back. You want people, if you want people to notice you, be noticeable.
Okay.
And because of that, I became an actor and worked in speech and worked with people, choir director. I just love crowds. I feel right home in front of a crowd because of their training.
I think that's awesome. I would like to go on from there with my own sons, okay, and say that one of the things that I taught them that I know you learned somewhere is have a sense of humor. Be able to laugh.
Be able to laugh. Yeah.
You know, when you walk into a room and you're feeling nervous, especially when you're a teen, what you've got to understand is so is everybody. They're not noticing how you look because they're busy thinking about how everyone thinks they look. And if you have a sense of humor, and literally 10 minutes of laughter a day can change the neural pathways.
It'll heal you.
It'll heal.
Yeah.
And it's better than crunches. And I'd rather laugh for 10 minutes than do 1,000 crunches. So laugh, leave them laughing. Every day as my sons left for school, I would ask them, or I would say to them, find a reason to smile and laugh. And when they got home, I would say to them, what'd you smile about today? What'd you laugh about?
Yeah.
It was healing.
We've had some belly laughs between us over the years.
Oh, heavens, yes.
I remember this girl when she was peddling
I'm not saying.
cheese crackers of some, I can't remember the name of it.
Actually, the way we met was funny, but it came up for me the other day because back in those days, you and I would communicate sometimes through your brother on air through another medium, and I became known for my laugh. And I was at a restaurant.
Over the air, over television.
Right, over television.
Yes.
And I was in a restaurant having lunch with someone, and this total stranger came running up to my table and said, I know who you are. And she called me by my nickname at the time. She said, because I recognize your laugh.
Oh, make her tell you her nickname at the time.
Well, just yesterday, I was in the doc's office, and someone came running around the corner up to the window and went, I know who you are. I know that laugh. But you know, there are worse things to be known by than by your laugh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, there are. Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the name was Princess.
Yes, Princess.
And my mother was Queen Mother, but that's a whole nother show.
That was mid-'80s when Home Shopping Club started national. My brother was one of the first cast members.
Yes, he was.
He was one of the guys that wrote the book on that.
Yep. And so he's gone on.
He works for NBC now.
Okay.
In Minnesota.
And we're still laughing.
And we're still laughing. Yeah.
And that's what I love.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I couldn't get through a day without doing that.
One more shameless plug for your website. Go ahead and tell everybody.
GaryAlyn.com. GaryAlyn.com. If you'd like some music at a party, that's what I provide. Great atmosphere. Thank you. And anyone tells me that they've seen the show, I'll give you half off my fee.
And that's awesome. That really is. And I will tell you, Gary has written some original music that has brought me to tears.
Oh, go to YouTube. Go to YouTube. Please go to YouTube and just type in the search bar Gary Alyn, GaryAlyn. And I've got a couple things there for you to listen to.
Beautiful music. The one is kind of fun and sassy.
One, if you've ever been dated a lazy bum.
Right. I love that. That's fun and sassy.
Well, there's so many of these guys down here in Florida who live off their girlfriends. And I just wrote a song about them. It's kind of a jazzy, fun thing. And the other song, though, is more serious. It's about Hurricane Katrina and Sandy, a tribute to those folks.
And that one brings tears to my eyes, still.
Oh, I'd love for you to go and see them and like them.
And then my website is Wisdom Hypnosis. WisdomHypnosis, all one word, .com. And please peruse my website, contact me through that, and I will then send you a free audio for stress release. I want to say thank you to Patricia for giving us the opportunity to play here today. Remember, it's Patricia Scott of Up Hypnosis Institute, and her website is uphypnosis.com. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Debbie, for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for joining me. I had so much fun.
you for watching Think Up, Unlimited Possibilities with Patricia V. Scott. Brought to you by the Talk Network in Tampa, Florida.